Okay, buying a Mac without actually understanding RAM is like ordering pizza for a party without knowing how many people are coming. You're just guessing, buy too little, and the only fix is buying a new Mac. You can't just add more later. Too much, and you've paid hundreds for performance you never even notice. So, let's get this exactly right by understanding RAM once to then making the right decision forever. And it all starts in the kitchen. Because just for a sec, think of RAM as the space on your kitchen counter. This is where you keep all the ingredients you're about to mix, blend, chop, and cook. Everything that's happening right now sits on this counter. That's RAM. It's where things live short term, like the text you've copied to paste later or unsaved changes to a document. But there's only so much space, and once dinner's ready, we clear the counter. You won't store your ingredients and cookware here long term. Unless you're my roommate from first year. But what if you didn't buy a big enough counter, aka RAM, and it's completely packed? Well, your Mac won't just crash, there's always a plan B. And a plan C. And this is what most advice ignores, costing you a lot of money. For starters, plan B being compressed memory. You see, your Mac can squeeze RAM data you're not actively using a little tighter. Like on the counter, we could chop some veggies or stack these bowls. The point being, everything's still here while taking up less space. But sooner or later, we'll still run out. So plan C is swap memory. For that, we need the fridge, our internal SSD or solid state drive. That's where your ingredients live long term, aka your files, apps, your entire user account, everything that needs to survive even when you shut down your Mac. Now, there's tons of space here, so when the counter gets full, your Mac could just move some ingredients off the counter back into the fridge. It's nothing revolutionary. PCs have used swap memory for decades, but that's the reason your Mac can technically function with less RAM. However, there's one problem here. You see, grabbing items from the fridge every 5 seconds is a lot slower than just working from the counter in front of me, just like working directly from RAM, which responds almost instantly compared to your SSD. So if your Mac constantly has to pull data back from swap space on the SSD, those tiny delays add up, and that's when you start to notice some slowdowns. Now, there's a baked-in tool on your Mac that shows exactly how much swap memory you're using, and we'll get there, because with the basics done, your RAM decision gets super obvious in a sec. Oh, and if you enjoy videos like this one and want to see more, a sub to the channel would honestly make my day. Alright, 2 ways to know how much RAM you need for 2 types of people. First, if you don't yet own a Mac, we need to zoom out a bit. Because here's the thing, most advice will tell you to focus on what you do on your Mac. But if you're building massive Blender scenes or running virtual machines all day, you already know you're not buying the base model. You need at least 32 gigs of RAM, if not more. The actual question for the rest of us shouldn't be what you do, it's how you do it. Because modern PCs are great at smartly managing your memory, if you mostly focus on one task at a time and work with Office apps or even some light video editing, 16 gigs of RAM is a solid choice. Just to back this up, I edited these videos on an M1 Pro MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM for years. I only recently moved to 24, and that already gives me comfortable headroom. And that's where more RAM starts to matter, because if you do these same light office or student tasks on a 24GB machine, you gain more headroom, which allows your Mac to cache more data, which basically just means it can keep more items on the counter you might need in a bit. So the moment you start cooking something bigger, you're already ready for it. The point being, apps could load faster and everything feels more instant. Plus, if you're actively working across several RAM-demanding apps like Chrome with 50 tabs, Photoshop, a Lightroom project, maybe a Teams call in the background, that's where you need to consider 24 or even 32 gigs of RAM. Because you're not dealing with one single app, but multiple heavy workloads, they all need to grab something from your single kitchen counter. But, and this is important, although having too little counter space will definitely slow you down, having way too much counter space when you're just heating up a lasagna isn't going to speed things up at all. There's just a ton of unused space you've wasted your hard-earned money on. So don't feel pressure to upgrade to 24 gigs of RAM if 16 might be more than enough. Even Apple, who wants to sell you all this, says that when you have free or unused memory, your computer performance does not necessarily improve. Oh, and I haven't touched on 8 gigs yet, because in 2026, it's quite hard to recommend. But if you do get a great deal on a Mac with 8 gigs and you do light office or student work, then yes, you can absolutely still get away with 8 gigs of RAM. But just know that you're cooking on the smallest counter possible, and you definitely feel it the second your workload grows. We'll get to future-proofing in a sec, but first, if you already own a Mac, it can literally tell you whether your current RAM is enough. You see, all this memory managing we've just talked about isn't just theory. You can actually watch your Mac do it in real time in the Activity Monitor app. Click on Memory, and this shows us everything that's going on right now. There's swap used, memory compression, and memory used. And you might think, let's just check memory used, and that's how much I need to buy. But ironically, the more RAM your Mac has, the more it will happily use. Because again, your Mac then caches more data, so everything feels more snappy. The only stat here that interests us is memory pressure. Just open your most power-hungry tasks with the apps you normally use, and if the graph stays green, you're more than good. The point being, your Mac has enough RAM for how you actually work. Now, if it briefly turns yellow, don't panic. Small spikes are totally normal, especially when launching apps or opening large files. What you are actually looking for is sustained pressure. If it frequently sits in yellow or red during your normal workload, not some arbitrary stress test, but your actual day-to-day use, that's when you know you'd benefit from more RAM. But Vince, how much more, you might ask? And what about future-proofing? Well, I appreciate you asking, because that's where things get really interesting. Sure, you can save money by going with the lowest possible amount of RAM, but here's 3 big reasons you might want to go one level higher than you currently need. For starters, as you already know, MacBooks don't have upgradable RAM, so if the recipes you cook start to get more complex, you need to cash out for a new kitchen, so a completely new Mac. Second, most of the time software needs more RAM as it evolves. But also, and I can't recommend Snazzy Labs video on this enough, I link it down below, you might have heard something about RAM prices lately. Yep, they've skyrocketed. At the moment, this isn't affecting Apple's pricing because they have long-term deals, but they aren't immune to this, and other PC companies have already had to increase their prices massively. So in this light, future-proofing might also save you from buying a new and much more expensive Mac anytime soon. Although that's just my unqualified prediction and shouldn't force you to spend more than you might need right now. Oh, and once you've bought your new MacBook, you definitely want to avoid buying any of these accessories for it, because they can do damage real quick. Alright, I will see you there. Thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Oh yeah, zero people showed up to my party. That's what happens when you guess.